Good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about the intellectual property and startup. Some 35 years ago, Bill Gates predicted internet would change our lives. And in fact, it did. We all agree that internet, social media, smartphone, it's all changed our way of living. And so is the business paradigm changed. That means these tools, internet, smartphone, it makes access to information is much, much easier. And also easier communication. That means limited geographical barrier. That means business become global, increasingly global. The market is global. That also means market is increasingly competitive. That is necessitate companies to their business more efficiently. Also, you need to improve the quality of your products and services. Constant generation of new technologies and fast and short cycle of technologies. It means also companies technologically interdependent to each other. One company cannot alone generate all the technology or own all technologies that they need for their product services. That means you need to collaborate with other companies, with research institutes, universities as generator of knowledge. And today it's highly knowledge-driven and technology-intensive economy everywhere in the world. That means you just keep innovate. So innovation is the only way today, it is proven by many countries, particularly like South Korea. Innovation is the only way a nation can compete and survive in today's global competition. Highly knowledge and technology-intensive economy. Innovation provides solutions to social and economic and technological problems. Technology has more economic value than tangible asset. So this is a change we are living in the business world. So knowledge-based economy, before in the industry, it was the industry labor economy up to some 1970s. And sometime then, it changed to knowledge economy. As you can see, today, more than 87% of market value of world-leading companies. Oh, okay. So should I take it? Okay, so over 87% of world-leading companies' market value today is based on intangible asset, as opposed to tangible asset. It used to be the capital or real estate, buildings, equipment, people working had a value in a company, but today more than 87% of market value is based on intangible assets, including patents, trademarks, design, brand. So it's actually really intellectual property plays a key role in the value. It's a key valuable asset of the company today. As you can see, the tangible asset, intangible asset switch the position sometime 1990s, and today more than 87%, nearly 90% of company's market value is based on its intangible asset. So why we are talking about startups? Why startups become an increasingly important actor in the economic development in the country? So startups are the main driving force behind the economic development and increase the productiveness in knowledge-based economy. Startups are a suitable form of implementing incremental inventions, the new technologies, into products and services. So it's kind of best mechanism to commercializing technological innovation, because startups are quite flexible. And then startups contribute to quick development and the new technologies into products and services. Startups create job creation. Startups create a large portion of new jobs and to contribute to the country's economic growth. And the important driving force for economic development stimulate healthy competition in the market, and the important contributor to the economic system. It's a part of a key player in the innovation ecosystem. Also, startups promote technological development. Many startups are based on their intellectual property, new technologies that they invented. So as knowledge executor, startups work closely with knowledge generators, such as universities, research institutes, and it promotes research development and create in entrepreneurship ecosystem. Many startups have introduced latest technologies, Internet of Things, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, biometrics, security, and robotics, and so on. Many of the startups are working in that industry. Startups are very dynamic and then flexible business entity. Startups stimulate new economic dynamics, creating new dynamics in the market, and have flexible business structure. It's usually small, and thus very lean structure of the company, thus capable of adapt to the change of the business environment, which is constantly changing. And bringing the value of proactive into the society, startups provide new values to the society. For example, solution to social global problems. The world is facing quite critical issues such as climate change, energy, food security, and disease, neglected disease, and so on. So these are, startups are coming up with the solutions to these problems. So startups create a lot of jobs. In fact, this is in the US. It's actually startups makes many more jobs than the big companies, which are actually losing the employment. So here it said, no startups, no job creation, which is really true. In the US alone, in 2009, some 4 million jobs are created by startup companies. This is also in Australia. Startup sector has the potential to contribute 109 billion or 4% of GDP to the Australian economy and 540,000 jobs by 2030. So it is really, startups are contributing the growth of economy of the country as well as job creation. So how startups, which are small and limited resources and limited capacity and limited expertise, business expertise, how they can survive? In fact, only less than half of startups created survive 5 years. I was talking during lunchtime with the CEO of a startup in Korea. He's on the 5th year, so he's actually the good one, good startup. The startups survive, less than half survive 5 years. But it's also because startups are based on the new technologies. Many of the startups are based on new technologies. So they somehow exit certain period of time of the business. That's also maybe a reason why only half can survive. So in fact, this is also in the US. That's 500,000 companies created as a startup, but every year it's leaving the exit from the business world or fail. And only some of the startups will grow to a big company such as Google or Facebook, Amazon, Uber, and so on. But many startups also exit when it comes to the reach the maximum point of the profit, either acquired by the big company or exit, and then they start new companies. Because the nature of the startups is based on the new technologies, and perhaps some technologies will not survive 5 years or longer, particularly in the field of ICT. So why IP is so important for startups? It's particularly important because, again, startups are usually small companies, and then also limited resources, limited capital, also limited business expertise. So intellectual property, their invention, for example, in a technological innovation, or copyright on the new software, is the core value of the company. IP is the core value of the company. IP can be unique sales proposition of the product or services that ensures business sustainability. IP ensures startups' business sustainability. IP can differentiate their product from others, such as trademark or design. IP protection provides strong defensive vis-a-vis a competitor's product. Compared to the products of competitors, you can provide defensive power. IP creates a high entry barrier by having intellectual property rights that it excludes others to enter the competition, therefore creates an entry barrier, thereby help your business to grow faster with respect to your competitors' offerings. IP is considered as the key ingredient of competitive advantage, particularly for startups. IP assumes greater significance for technology startups as the new technologies are constantly being generated. IP creates a huge brand value on both manufacturing and technology sector, particularly like a trademark and the name of the company. Strategic IP protection and management can take the value of the company to a completely different level. By having a technology, having an IP, having a patent, or a brand value of the trademark, startup companies it enables the startup to compete with the big companies. So it's really bring the company, small company, to the completely different level. So what kind of intellectual property that's very relevant to startups? Many startups are based on the technological innovation. Therefore, patents is most relevant intellectual property, as well as trademarks, branding, protection of company name and the product name. And many ICT companies, startups, in the creative industry, computer software and algorithm, these are protected by copyrights. And also in many products and mechanical engineering, industrial design become quite important intellectual property. And also, startups also deal with trade secret or know-how together, combined with other intellectual property such as patent. So these are the quite important and relevant intellectual property that startups have to and then are dealing with. So, valuation of startup, how to value of the company. On average, 80% value of startup is based on the IP. So that you can see that how important for startups intellectual properties are. And this is a Korean study that computer and peripheral industry or software on your left, that's the company's profit, performance, market value of the company. And then on the right is the patents. So the company's profit, company's value goes up along with their patent ownership. So that is also really proving that intellectual property is most important asset of startups. So intellectual property add the value to your company's business and also in your product, to your product. Intellectual property, different type of intellectual property. First, you have idea, new idea. You can, let's say it's an invention. You protect by a patent. And then when you start the company, you have to have a trademark, your company's logo, product name, product trademark, so adding trademark. And then also maybe your product needs protection of design. It involves industrial design. Therefore, you also protect by industrial design. And also, your product services involve the software or algorithm, computerized. So it's also involve copyright. And then perhaps you have also more like a trade secret or know-how. So by having more or strong intellectual property rights, IPR, not in this order, not necessarily this order. Sometimes you have copyright first, and then invention coming, and then patent, trademark, industrial design, and so on. By adding intellectual property, the value of your product, the value of your company will go up as well. So that's why intellectual property plays significantly important role, particularly in startup companies. Intellectual property is certainly important for big companies. I used to work at WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization, under the PCT. I am from Japan. I used to be in charge of taking care of PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty Operations, International Patent Application, from Japan. But I can tell you, the Samsung, LG, they are the big filer of PCT. Very, very top patent filing companies. So intellectual property is certainly important for big companies, but IP, particularly technological innovation, therefore patent, is even more important for small businesses and startups because the IP may be the only competitive advantage you may have. Essential to find investors and commercialization partners or obtain access to enabling technologies. Investors generally see intellectual property, protected intellectual property, consider the assurance of the credibility of that company's success. Investors typically view IP patents as insurance for their investment. Lots of times, investors do not invest in the companies which does not have a strong intellectual property, such as patent. The value of small companies' patents may therefore be the crucial factor in the decision of a venture capitalist or other investors to invest in the company. And strong patents, protected patent, intellectual property may also be used as bargaining chips for licensing. You may have to have a license other technologies in order to produce your product, or you can license out your technologies. So the intellectual property leverage your bargaining power for sales and business collaboration opportunities. By the way, the banks also consider intellectual property as a big asset. Therefore, the bank is giving a loan to small companies and so on, particularly if you have intellectual property rights. So in conclusion, startups should protect its IP that render competitive advantage to its business. IP protection and management should be the important part of startups' business strategy. It is a part of the business strategy. IP portfolio is the most valuable asset of a startup in most cases. Strong and well-protected intellectual property, well-protected means also very enforceable intellectual property, and brand enable a startup to control its product and services in the market and business sustainability. So that is the reason why intellectual property is most relevant to startups, and then probably very, very important, powerful tool for the success of the business. Thank you very much. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다.